Well, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whoever you are, wherever you are, and welcome to this, my little review. We're doing it live at the time of recording of Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2, the latest movie to be released by Disney and Pixar in June of 2024. And I thought we'd take the kids to see it today because the kids had a day off school. So me, my wife, my children, we all went to see it. And I thought it's time to talk about it right here on the channel. So there will be spoilers in this video for Inside Out 2. But I did figure it was time to, talk about the Pixar problem. And people might not know what I'm talking about there, but Pixar have been quite a failing studio in the last couple of years. They've put out stinker after stinker when it comes to films. Lightyear was terrible. It was not well received. And they really did need to find their footing. So they decided, right, we're going to be the sequel studio. We're going to take the franchises that people know and love, Inside Out, The Incredibles, Toy Story, and we're going to continue these franchises because we think they'll bring a return. They'll bring the dollary dues back to the box office. And that new real push for these sequels has begun now with Inside Out 2. And I think, unfortunately for Pixar, it's very, very much paid off. And with that, I mean, it's just crossed $1 billion at the global box office. And let's not knock it for that. It's the first film this year in 2024 to do it. I think the next film will be coming out in just a few weeks with Deadpool and Wolverine, but Inside Out has done it. It has crossed $1 billion at the global box office. It's profitable, and they have made money. But is it good? Now, that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. And like I said, we're gonna be spoiling Inside Out 2 here. Look, you see, there's a little picture from it. But we're gonna be spoiling this movie. We're gonna be talking about it because I'm gonna say right off the bat, it's quite an enjoyable film. It's quite an enjoyable film. Now, Johan, or John, who joins us on this channel sometimes, he doesn't like it. But then he watched the first 20 minutes of this movie and he checked out. And that's not to knock him. If he didn't want to continue watching it because he didn't like what he saw, then absolutely fair enough. And people shouldn't be forced to watch a movie from start to finish. But I can see why it's got staying power, and I can see why it's crossed $1 billion. The messaging is pretty good at the end of the day. It's all about coming to terms with emotions, new emotions, and it visualizes that quite well. It really does. With the characters, we see the return of the characters from the original movie: joy, sadness, fear, anger, and disgust. We pick up 2 years after where the first Inside Out movie left off. Riley, the main character, the girl whose head these emotions are inside, has turned 13 years old, and she's starting to go to high school. She's about to go to high school, and the puberty alarm bell rings. If you saw the first Inside Out movie, right at the very end, when Joy, the main character, comes to terms with the fact that sometimes you need sadness to feel joy, and emotions need to work together in order to get from one to the other, rather than Joy just being at the driving seat. It's a good message. It is a good message, but they're working together. They're forming a nice bond, and they've created, or at least discovered, a new area within headquarters, or underneath headquarters, called the Sense of Self. It's a newly formed element of Riley's mind, and it houses thoughts and feelings which form Riley's beliefs. Okay? And Joy, being Joy, and having learned her lessons in the first movie, still kind of hasn't learned her lessons, because she's putting only positive memories within the sense of self. So she can only form positive beliefs. And she's created this new tube within headquarters where they can take all of the negative memories and just launch them to the back of Riley's mind, as in forget them. And it's a decent concept in theory, but in practice, that's not how you build a human being. A human being is made of positive emotions, positive experiences, negative emotions, negative experiences. And so the main character, Joy, she's still very naive. And once again, voiced by Amy Poehler in this movie, by the way. So they they get Riley gets invited to a weekend ice hockey camp because she's an ice hockey player, and the puberty alarm bell rings the night before, and all of a sudden a group of workers wrecking ball through the headquarters, rip it all out and say they need to expand it, extend it for the new emotions. They're going to be turning up soon. Have they not arrived already? And then they do. Then they do arrive. And your new emotions are Anxiety, who is basically the main character of this movie. And she's voiced by Maya Hawke. So that's Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke's daughter. She was also in Stranger Things. She plays the ice cream parlor scoop girl with Steve Harrington. I forget the character's name. And we have Anxiety. We have Embarrassment. We have Envy. And Envy's like the one that I think the merchandise is probably going to be made of. She's like this tiny little big-eyed thing that's cyan blue in colour. And then we have Ennui, which is just a... I don't even know why it's there. It's boredom, but it has a French accent. It's, my name is Ennui. Yes, oui. And that one can't even be able to go to the console. So it's got a mobile phone that drives the console through an app. But after that happens, Riley starts wildly overreacting whenever they put them, whenever one of the emotions starts driving the console. And all of a sudden, Anxiety appears. And Anxiety starts driving and basically becomes the ruler of headquarters almost immediately. And she gets the other emotions to grab the original 5 and put them in a bottle. And then they're taken off to a prison and put in a vault. And then ensues what I can only say is the first Inside Out movie. And this is one of my main gripes that I have with this. Because it is just another adventure through the recesses of Riley's mind in order to save headquarters and save Riley from the new emotion, or the bad emotion, shall we say, Anxiety. And yeah, there are some differences along the way. There's some notable differences. We have the sarcasm, which is an actual chasm. And when they try and call for help to workers across, they shout for help. And the sarcasm alters their voices to sound like a sarcastic tone when it gets across. That's quite funny. And yes, there is a... If you've ever seen 1984 or read 1984, you've got the Big Brother who's watching you thing. Well, Anxiety has a bunch of workers chained up in a giant pillow fort, essentially, drawing scenarios for Riley during a hockey camp. And her face is up on this big screen, looking down over them all, telling them what to do. And it's really, really quite reminiscent of that, of George Orwell's 1984. It's quite terrifying, actually. But, as I said, it is just, and this is my main gripe with this movie. And I understand the term, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But they got a new director here. They got a new director in, Kelsey Mann. I believe the first one was directed by Pete Docter. And he had literally nothing. Pete had literally nothing to do with this movie. I think he did a voice cameo on one of the characters, and that is it. He didn't produce it. He didn't do the story. So it was handed off to a new team. And still, what they managed to do was make the first movie again. Because Riley has this new thing called a sense of self, as we said beforehand. And that's sort of a spirally, globy, orby thing that's up in the headquarters. And Anxiety rips that out and sends it off to the back of Riley's mind through the tube. So the plan is to send Sadness back to headquarters secretly up one of the tubes. And she does it. She gets up there. In order for her to be able to recall all of the emotions that are left, fear, fear, joy, anger, and disgust. Recall them once they've gone and collected the sense of self in the back of Riley's mind. It's the same movie again. It is. And that's unfortunate because, like I said, actually watching this film from start to finish, it was a slow start. It was very much a slow start. But it was fine. Now, the first Inside Out movie, when Joy comes to the realization that sometimes sadness is needed in order to find joy once again, that's such a poignant moment and a very emotional moment, actually, and can bring you to tears, has brought people to tears. And they try and sort of recreate that moment in this movie at the end with Anxiety, who is literally having an anxiety attack. And she's like a whirlwind up in the headquarters, and it's like a force shield that Joy has to get through. And when she gets through there, Anxiety's just frozen in the middle of this anxiety attack. And I think it's a really good way of visualizing what happens inside your brain during an anxiety attack. But, and there is a but, it's the same realization that sometimes one emotion needs another in order to continue to make the user or human being thrive. And the additional message that was put on at the end of this that I caught notice of was that your emotions shouldn't drive you as a human being. You should drive your emotions, or you should be able to call up which emotion you want. And this was a new concept introduced right at the end of the movie, where Joy's standing in headquarters and all of a sudden a yellow mist starts going from her body over to the console to drive. And that's not happened before. And they realize that Riley wants joy right now. Riley is looking to feel joy. And so it's got to the point where your emotions are no longer driving you as a child. As you develop into a complex teenager, you need to sort of start taking charge. Your emotions have become far more out of control, complex, and you need to start driving your emotions almost. And it's a nice concept, but unfortunately, like I said, the delivery is not great, because instead of coming up with a new, unique story, they just rehashed the first movie. And I go back to that phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But with it crossing $1 billion, my fear is that the upcoming sequels, and like I said at the beginning of this, Pixar have decided to make themselves the sequel studio. With all of the upcoming sequels, are they going to now start looking at the ones like, say, Toy Story 5 is coming? Arguably, Toy Story 2 is the best one, or Toy Story 3 for some people. Toy Story 4, absolutely not. But are they going to take the concept and plot from, say, Toy Story 2 and just rehash it and say, well, that made loads and loads of money at the box office. People loved that movie. So instead of writing something new, unique for these characters, introducing new... They probably will introduce some new characters along the way. It's Toy Story, for God's sake. But instead of writing brand new, unique plot lines and stories and adventures for these characters to go on, are they just now going to go, well, look, we've done $1 billion with this. We're onto something here. And whilst that might be good for nostalgia, because it's been a good 9 years or so since Inside Out 1. And whilst that might be good for nostalgia, is it good for the audience? Is it good for us? Because I think even though they may win at the box office, we all lose. And what we lose out on is, like I said, brand new stories. Because let's face it, Hollywood storytellers at the moment, they just don't know what they're doing. They keep hiring people fresh out of college, indoctrinated into some weird ideologies, who don't focus on giving you a decent adventure, a decent story. oftentimes focus on driving whatever political message they want to give into this franchise or movie and ending up destroying it because they make that the vehicle for something that it was never meant to be the vehicle for. I can safely say that with this movie that didn't happen, in my opinion. I think this is a good movie, a good coming of age story, and there are good visualizations of how emotions can make you feel. It was a very slow start though, but I think really came to at the end. Like I said, emotional beats didn't really hit. I mean, did I get touched in the feels? Sometimes, but not to the point where, like the eyes were watering or anything like that. So they didn't recapture that magic. But what I can say, it's a solid cast. They've done a good job. It looks gorgeous. Okay? They've really upgraded the CGI in this. The texture and the skin of the characters, I say skin, they're sort of made of dust, essentially, coloured dust. But it looks gorgeous. But do I recommend you go and see it at the cinema? Well, personally speaking, I'd definitely say check it out. But maybe go and check it out when it comes out on home video. Because it was a little bit disappointing. It was a bit of a letdown. But it is competent. It is competently made. And it deserves all the success it's getting. My children loved it. And really that's who it's for, right? And it was nice to see a movie come out of Disney that was sort of about the coming of age. And the wholesome idea of growing up into a more complex human being. And not trying to shove any agendas of any kind, in my opinion, down your throat. But with that in mind, with my thoughts there, you don't have to agree with me. This is why we're called The Real Review. We'll give you our real, raw thoughts here, whether it be on theme parks, travel, the state of accessibility, disabled people, so that's important to us, and we like to make accessibility guides here. Or films and pop culture. And we'll tell you what we really feel and think, and you don't have to agree with us. That's not why we're here. We're not trying to force you to agree with us. But, if you enjoyed this little rant, rambling, whatever you want to call it, then please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're on the road to 1,400. We're just 25 away at the time of recording this from 1,400. We'd love to get there by the end of this week. And if you can help us further, you can become a channel member here from just 99p a month, where we do members-only live streams where I embarrass myself, sing songs. The higher the tier that you do become a member at, the more chance you get to choose what I sing for you. Put it that way. And we do other stuff as well. It's a lot of fun. It's good fun. And I feel like we're building a nice little community here. And we really can perhaps do something a little bit special. But with all that said, thank you for watching this little review. If you have done, be it live or back, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll speak to you